Welcome back to making a fursuit from scratch. In this episode, we're focusing almost entirely on furring the head. It's legitimately probably the hardest part about making a fursuit, but going one step at a time, nice and slowly, we'll get there in the end. If you're new to this channel, we are building a fursuit from scratch. So like literally episode 1, we built the ref sheet, and then the final episode, we will have a finished full like fox plush suit. Some people like grinding RuneScape levels. We're grinding a fursuit. It's very hard, but you're coming along with us for the adventure. And as a quick reminder, oops, if I can move the camera, this is what our ref sheet looked like previously, and then here's a much closer look at the pattern. This episode, we're really gonna focus on this big guy up here, which goes all the way to the end of the nose, his little friend that hides inside the ear, so like this kind of piece here, and then if we have time, maybe some of the eyebrow. It doesn't look like a lot of work, but you have to remember that all these pieces are super complex, and we're gonna need to flip them to get the other side before we sew it all together. Just going slow is honestly how we're gonna do this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and cut all of this out. I've kind of nicely marked out our lines, and we're gonna, for the best of our judgment, just kind of very carefully cut all this out. Also, a quick tip that I think a lot of people forget is to make sure to change your blades. These blades go dull a lot faster than you think, and man, a huge pack of them, you can get like 100 of them for 10 bucks. You save yourself so much time and ease in the long run if you just have fresh blades in your knives. Take this guy off. Get this out of here. Free your dog. Getting your knife in these really hard to reach spots down here is actually very hard. Sometimes it's best just to leave it, and then when you pull it off, then cut it with scissors or something. The last thing you want to do is cut yourself with one of these knives. While cutting these out, I'm actually finding that it's easier to use the scissor than a box cutter or a razor knife. I think it's just because you have a lot more control when you use a scissor, but it's kind of hard to get in these little spots here, so cutting a hole and then using the scissors to get a nice straight cut honestly feels like the best of both worlds. There's a lot of times no correct tool for the job, it's instead just whatever tool kind of works, and sometimes you just prefer one or the other. Making these pattern pieces is half an art and half a science. You have to get pretty creative with it, and everything's a bit kind of flimsy and floppy, so you just gotta do what you gotta do to get it done. It's not always perfect, and truthfully, spending a lot of time to make it perfect is probably a waste of your time. But getting it very nice and very neat, it is very helpful. Ooh, there's that big boy off. So here are our finished pattern pieces for the head, and I'm gonna tell you why we're gonna go ahead and cut this guy here in half. So keep in mind what we're actually trying to do. We're trying to go ahead and tape up half the head, but get all of the fur. So the goal for all these pieces, right, is to flip them over to get both sides. But there's a problem. If we look at our pattern piece, this line here, which should be perfectly straight because it matches down the head, instead has a bend in it. And that's gonna be a problem, right? When we flip this over, we're gonna get this weird kind of spot in the middle that's not gonna work. So at where that line changes, I'm gonna go ahead and make a cut right here, and then I'm gonna take this new piece and flip it over on itself, and this guy and flip it over, and then sew both those in together. That should fix the problem. If you have these straight lines here, if you're flipping it over, I think it has to be perfectly straight. Though I'm sure if there's a fursuit expert in the comment section, they can tell me if that's not always the case. One challenge of using duct tape is that one side of the pattern ends up being very sticky, and that makes it pretty hard to work with actually. It's kind of a pain in the butt. And there's our inner ears done. Legitimately, the best part about making a fursuit is fitting all these little random pieces on your fur such that you don't waste it. Ah, it's so satisfying. It's like clearing like a 4Z line in Tetris. Ah, if it doesn't work. Ah, never mind, just kidding. It's not satisfying at all, I hate it. And there we go, there are finished cut out pieces, all like that. Now, before we cut out these, let me show you a cool trick. What we need to do is shave all this fur down, and instead of shaving down one piece at a time, we're gonna cut out all of our orange pieces, shave the big block itself, like the big chunk of fur, and then cut out all of our individual pieces. It's gonna make for a really clean look. Let me show you how it's done. I'm just gonna go ahead and really roughly cut out this major piece. It doesn't matter that's not gonna be perfect, and it doesn't matter that we're gonna waste a little bit of fur. it's probably worth it in the end. And just like this, we're gonna have our piece cut out. Now let's go ahead and shave this guy down. So after doing some test pieces, we're gonna cut this fur down to 2 millimeters, and if we need to cut it closer, we can do that later, but we can't go back, so let's just start there. I used to do a lot of convention badges of people's characters in traditional media. So like I would paint their persona and then cut it out with scissors and then put it on some background. This is very similar to that. So just like when you're cutting out a character to make it all cool, make it pop on a background, cutting out fur for a fursuit is it's like a very similar feeling, you know? It's very, very satisfying. So there we go. Here are our finished pieces. Let's go ahead and see how they fit. So before I show you how it looks, I'm gonna please ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing and helps support this channel by promoting it more in the YouTube algorithm. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Like any good painting, it looks real bad until it doesn't. Right now it's all just placed on the fur, and it's like a little rough, but I'm not too worried. I figure once we get all sewn together, it'll look a lot more tight and clean. For right now, this is all just placed on here, and man, this sewing is gonna take quite a long time. There's a lot of complexity going on here with all these different pieces. But just like everything else, we'll start from the top, kind of work our way down. I'm not super worried. It's just really satisfying having like 300 of you guys every week keep me honest with this project. It's really hard, and man, I appreciate you guys' support so much. I don't normally show the sewing because it's typically not very interesting, but I haven't had the time to do it yet. So let's go ahead and do this entire piece together, and I'm gonna show you step by step on how I connect this big piece here to our big mega piece that already exists. So the most important part is that you really want to get everything lined up on the center line, because that's kind of what your bases the entire off. So starting at the point here and the center of this piece here is kind of key to all of this. Then we're simply gonna pin everything up together, like little pins, and I'll show you. And then just to make sure we can check ourselves, I'm gonna put a mark on the bottom of the fur here where this piece ends, just to make sure we don't sew too far on accident. Because we have to know that this curves around, it connects this piece over here and not this guy here. You get the hang of it after a while, but it is actually very tricky. So if it's really hard and you mess up, don't worry about it. It's really hard. So here is our entire seam pinned together using those bulldog clips. And then next, I'm just gonna do a ladder stitch all the way along the seam. I hear a lot of people say you can use the whip stitch as well, and honestly, there are good arguments for both of them. Just use whatever one your personal preference is. The whip stitch has way more stretch, but the ladder stitch is a bit stronger. It's just personal preference, really. Now, there's also, if you're doing a lot of hand sewing, getting a wrist brace like this will really protect your wrist from RSI. It's no joke, and it really can hurt you in the long run, so just make sure you have the right tools for the right job. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and sew all this together really quickly, and then come back to you with how we're gonna do the next piece. Ooh, I don't know about you guys. I think it's looking pretty darn good. I like the little tuft of hair up here, though I kind of wish we'd have made the nap go forward instead of backwards. I kind of like it as a cool little tuft. So let's go ahead and repeat that exact same process, but instead with the two side pieces for inside the ear. I don't know about you guys, but that's looking real snazzy. Loving how clean it is when it's all sewn together. I also went ahead and finished the front too. I know these pieces look complex with all these different right angles and stuff when you sew them together, but as long as you follow the exact same process of just lining it up, pinning it together, and then zipping it together with a stitch, it's actually pretty darn easy. Now, before we get too distracted, let's talk about this right here. One of the reasons why working on your own fursuit is so nice is that when you come to questions about what color goes where, you can honestly just guess and you'll be right because it's your own character. So when talking about what color goes where, we know the whole bottom of the face is going to be white, and we know the top of the face is going to be orange. So that leaves this inner ring here, and at first glance I thought it could be orange, but we could also try a couple other colors and see how this works too. So I'm going to go ahead and make this same piece in blue and dark brown, and we're going to see what we like more. It will look really cool in any one of those colors, and it'll be fun to try it out. So let's go ahead and cut this pattern apart. Wow, so we made a lot more fursuit pattern pieces than I expected. It's gonna take a lot longer than we probably realized to make all these little parts, because you figure they're all gonna be shaven down as well, and we need 2 of each, and then I think total 6 of the inner ones. It's just actually a lot of work. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and skip all this work and then come back to you with the big pile of parts, and then hopefully we can put them all together next episode and next week. It took just as long as we expected, but we finally have all the pieces cut out for next episode, and we can start assembling them together and kind of building the face up. Some last minute housekeeping items too. In the previous episode, we said whatever the highest upvoted comment is, we'll go ahead and answer that in this video here. And Masha once again got it right, and we'll answer her question in a second. But Yuna also said in the comment section that if we want to have a conversation, a really good way to do it is instead of you guys asking me questions, I should ask you a question. So in the next episode, I'll probably ask a question, and then whatever the highest, or whatever the good results are, we'll go ahead and answer those in the questions. I was thinking something along the lines of offering like a fursuit critique. I think that'd be a really cool way to interact with you guys, like put up a fursuit and then give it like an artistic, like, here's some things you're doing well, here's some things you could improve on. I think that'd be really valuable for you. Now, if you made it this far, I appreciate your support so much, and fair is fair, I'll answer your question, Masha. Protogens are really, really cool. I personally love Strugos a lot. I felt like protogens were probably one of the first like kind of fandom species to get really popular in a while. They did the digital character really well, and people like them. They're popular for a reason. Some of the old school stuff like Chikats and Manokits I also think are really cool. Honestly, anytime the furry fandom kind of invents their own kind of original species and gets popular, I think that's something to be proud of and excited about. I'm a big fan. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys again next week. Thank you.